Hi, I'm Lucas Hershey with Pennsylvania DEP. I've worked to put together our dry cleaner compliance calendars for the last 6 or 7 years or so, and we've never really had any issues getting the calendars out to the different cleaners up until about last year. And to give a little background, in late 2025, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania faced a budget impasse, and the department needed to limit spending mostly to essential items. And because of the cost of printing and mailing hundreds of these calendars, so the 2026 dry cleaner compliance calendar, a decision was made to not print a physical version of the calendar and to simply share a digital version of the calendar. So um, you guys can see that on your screen. Or sorry, I just moved it so I can see it. Um, so there's a digital version of the calendar. You can see the calendar page, and then also it's just like most other dry cleaner compliance calendars from other states. There's the record keeping page and the logging page and the dry cleaner calendar page. And then if you go like there's all sorts of different pages that cover different things, but mostly you're just looking at the calendar pages, and logging pages are what the dry cleaners are going to use. Um, So instead of providing these physical calendars, which we would send out about 500 each year to different cleaners, we decided to go with a digital version of the calendar instead. And they could access that hyperlink that I had linked in chat a moment ago. And if they wanted to, they could print those off. Um, uh, instead, in so for the 2026 calendar, instead, we just limited to the digital versions of the calendars. We sent out a postcard to let them know that, hey, we're not doing the physical calendars this year. Instead, we're just going to only do the digital access. So let me pull those up. So there, it's just a very, very basic postcard that was sent out. So that's the one side of the postcard, and then the other side of the postcard would have their address information. So we mailed these out to each of the dry cleaners, and pretty simple, straightforward, serves its purpose in providing awareness to the dry cleaners of where they could go to find the digital version of the 2026 calendar. And I'm sure a lot of the cleaners were probably disappointed that not to receive their annual calendar from DEP. Um, and while there weren't necessarily any big issues with switching to digital versions of the calendar, uh, there was one specific stakeholder that was a little disappointed. It seemed like that they didn't receive the calendars. I'm not going to say what the name of the organization was, but they indicated that they had received a lot of inquiries back about the calendar, and uh, said that they hope to get calendars next year. So that said, didn't hear much of anything from any of the individual cleaners or other stakeholders or the DEP regional offices. Um, but we did hear something. So there was not everything was like free and clear on that. So this leads to where I'm at today. I'm beginning work on the 2027 calendar, and last year's work on the 2026 calendar brought light to the rising cost of the calendar, and it was decided that we wouldn't be doing a mass mailing and printing of the calendars for 2027 or future years. So just like last year. That said, I am looking for solutions or ideas for the 2027 calendar. And before I ask for everybody else's input, I've got a few ideas of my own that I'll share with you now. Um, First thing, I'm thinking we could print off a one-sheet generic calendar, double-sided, that would include a blank 31-day calendar page on one side. So um, If it's not a 31-day month, you can just cross out the last day or 2 or 3 days. And then on the other side of the calendar would be the log record keeping page on the other side. And somewhere on there, we would include a link or QR code to the full digital calendar. Then cleaners could just make copies of 12 copies of that if they wanted to do it for each month. And or if they wanted to, they could access the full calendar online and print that off as well. But they would have some options. And that would be the cheapest way to go about it. It wouldn't really cost us much of anything to do that. Other option would be to send out a letter or postcard like last year, except this time on the postcard, we could request cleaners to respond via email or phone and see if they have interest in receiving calendars going forward. So just kind of be like, hey, are you guys interested? And chances are there would just be a fraction of the cleaners that would respond this time. So instead of printing 500 calendars, maybe we would only print 100 or 50 or something like that. And that would be some pretty big money savings there. And therefore, those dry cleaners that really want the calendars would get the calendars, and everybody else still has access to the digital version as well if they need it. Third and final idea is, and this idea can kind of be integrated with those other ideas. Instead of going outside of our department to print the calendars, which we did in the past, we had a third party within the Commonwealth that would print those. Instead, we could print the calendars with standard printer paper and bind those with plastic binding combs. Final product might not feel quite as premium as it used to be, but it should save a lot of money and still serve its purpose. And we could even integrate that with the other ideas I'd mentioned before and save even more money. So those are my ideas, those are my thoughts, and those are the challenges that we kind of face with this right now. Anybody have any ideas or questions?
This is really awesome. So when it is printed out, or when y'all have printed it out, it literally looks like a calendar that you can like flip up and mark on and everything. Okay.
Just like something that you could get at a store, I guess.
Yeah.
Last year it was printed in black, or in previous years there were a couple years where it was printed only in black and white, and then I think there were a number of years where it was like full color. But the full color cost a little bit more, and we're like, okay, we want to save some money and not print in full color. So, but yeah, a full just looks like any calendar that you would buy at a store, basically.
Yeah. And Sarah asked in the chat, do you need to print in other languages?
So the full calendar, so if you go to the calendar here, there is Korean text within the calendar. I mean, it doesn't show text on the calendar pages in Korean or any other language. And that's all we've got. So
I think that's pretty cool, even just to have the Korean in there. And is that your main demographic for the dry cleaners?
it's a large demographic. I wouldn't say it's the main demographic, not necessarily. Okay.
When you were sending out printed calendars, did they request them before you sent them, or did you just send them to the list of addresses that you had?
We just sent them to the list of addresses that we had. We would also send out bulk mailings to different stakeholders, and we would send out bulk mailings to some of the regions.
And Sarah asked another question in the chat. What does the trade association want?
I don't necessarily understand the question. If she's asking, what the individual trade association that I referred to earlier wanted is we didn't send them a bulk mailing of dry cleaner calendars, and there was some disappointment that they from individual cleaners that I guess went to that stakeholder for calendars and they didn't have the calendars.
Right. So that's my question is like when I'm assuming you got input when you created the calendars with trade associations. And then I'm assuming, and this is probably my mistake, which you'll learn in my lessons learned, my mistakes were my assumptions. And if you had talked to the trade association, asked them, so which of these three options do you think dry cleaners would prefer easiest for them? And because then that's the one I would go with. But then again, with the trade association, you're just getting, the members. But then again, the members are usually the ones that are more actively engaged. So that's also a positive thing too.
Okay. That's an idea. Yeah, we haven't worked directly with the trade associations in development of the calendars in the past. I don't know. We've just never really had any issues in the past, and the calendars are very similar to many of the other states' calendars out there. But that is definitely something I'll consider and pass along to others in our section.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Probably.
thanks. Sorry, I'm driving. I just wanted to make sure. So in Iowa, a couple of things. So going along with the trade association, we don't have one for dry cleaners in Iowa, but we do have a gasoline bulk trade association that we work with for that particular calendar. And so we always get their feedback on the calendar, and we put their logo on our calendar, and then they help us distribute the calendars themselves. So we take a whole bunch, like a bunch of them, and drop them off there, and then the facilities can reach directly out to them and they mail them out for us, which is kind of nice. And then the other thing kind of going along with that, if they have a trade association, maybe they'd be willing to kind of sponsor the calendar if they feel that's important for the members. And then kind of going along with what Jordan had asked, we send out a postcard asking for facilities to request both our dry cleaning and gasoline bulk calendars. So that way we are not sending them out to people that don't use them. And so we just print a small number of them, and then it's kind of almost first come, first serve, whoever wants the calendars. So if that's helpful at all.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. Thanks for sharing those ideas.
Yep.
I think, Lucas, all the stuff that you shared, your ideas, I think are all good paths to go down, especially like if people are more computer savvy and like having all their stuff within an electronic system. I think that would be nice to have that version accessible to them that way. And then, like you mentioned, having almost like the template with it, like maybe that could be a blank page that you also attach on the PDF. But yeah, I think your idea about asking them, like maybe if they wanted a printed copy and you sent those postcards out to them, it's like, but if you would prefer a printed copy, email us and we can mail you one or something.
Yeah, we've yet to try anything like that, but I'm interested to see how it might work if we try it that way.
I'm gonna wait a few seconds. Does anybody else have any ideas or thoughts they'd like to share with Lucas about their compliance calendar?
I do see a question again from Sarah. Do inspectors see the calendars when they visit? I'm based out of central office, so I don't really see too many inspectors myself, but when we send the calendars out to the regions, maybe I misread what she said. I'm not really sure what inspectors see when they visit the different dry cleaners.
Yeah. As an outreach person, it's really cool when an inspector comes back and says, hey, I saw your calendar at this shop. And then you
Yeah.
can go, that's a win. Something I'm doing is, and then they say, and it was filled out. And you're like, yes, thank you. And then I would be like, oh, I need to get that on a social media thing, or I need to get that as a presenter, that why they use it, or a little
Yeah.
write up or something, or case study or something. I'm just wondering if inspectors have ever seen your calendar out, because how frustrating would that be to send out 500 calendars and then learn no one uses them? But since you had a response to say, oh, I miss those calendars, I would be like, oh my gosh, that's a win. Somebody's using them.
Yeah. No, that'd be great to know. I don't really interact with the inspectors too much where I'm at in the department, but maybe that's something I'll look for.
It sounds like an intern project.
It could be. Yeah, it could be an intern project.
That would be an outcome. Is Sydney on the call? No. That would be a great outcome story for metrics.
Yeah, yeah. It's recorded, so we can send the idea to her.
Michael
Awesome.
has a question.
Use government gov delivery instead of postcards.
Yeah, like for mass emails, instead of sending a bulk email, you use Gov Delivery with your information from the postcards instead. That way they're not just getting a postcard that can be damaged.
I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
gov delivery. Can you describe what that is, Michael?
It's a mass emailing system at the state level. I didn't know if all states have it, but we do.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have email addresses for the cleaners. We've only have mailing addresses.
That's because they're not large enough hazardous waste generators in your state. Is that why?
Um, I'm working off a list that was developed years and years ago. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will say we update our calendar every 2 years, and every 2 years we do a deep dive into the list of facilities that we have, because there's a lot of dry cleaners in our state that have closed, unfortunately. So if we're sending out postcards, if we're sending them to people that don't even exist anymore, that's, a waste of money too. So I would say if you have somebody or an intern or somebody that can help you go through the list, that would be helpful. Also, if you start requesting that they contact you to request a calendar, you would start getting emails of them. So in the future, you can potentially do like an email blast first, and then maybe as secondary, a postcard for those that you don't have contacts with.
Okay.
But email definitely is works really well for us.
Yeah, we probably remove, I would say 30 to 40 from our list each year. When I first started 6 or 7 years ago, I think we had mailed out between 700 and 800 calendars. COVID knocked out a whole pile of dry cleaners. But when we send a mailing out, if there's still if a dry cleaner is no longer at that address, it'll get returned to us, and we'll know to cross that off our list just for that reason. And no new dry cleaners should be PERC dry cleaners, so we shouldn't be really adding anybody to the list.
All right, I'm gonna leave some airspace to see if anybody else has anything that they wanted to add. Awesome sauce. Looks like we got that nailed down.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking about the compliance calendar. It's very cool to see that and see what y'all are doing.
Yep.
And so we'll jump over to Sarah. Sarah, if you wanted to share your screen, if you have a PowerPoint, or if you just want to talk to us about what your education outreach with the Chambers of Commerce is like.
All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I'm Sarah Johnson from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and I'm the Small Business Technical Assistance Program, and I am a party of one person doing both the assistance providing as well as the Small Business Ombudsman. And so a few years ago, I did some outreach to the Chamber of Commerce's. I got the idea from Mississippi. They had a very successful program of promoting their services to local Chamber of Commerce's. And that was when Jennifer and Jesse were there. And I knew them from 2008 to 2016 when they both retired and stuff. So that's where I got the idea from. So Mississippi partnered with some chambers, and through that partnership, they would share newsletter articles, and those newsletter articles would talk about the services they provided, various environmental rules they might be interested, as well as sharing guidance documents. They also presented at meetings, and they could set up tables at the Chamber of Commerce's or workshops to promote their services. And through that effort, the responses they received were additional information requests, some site visits, and added people to their newsletter distribution list, and it may have increased traffic to their web pages as well. So when I started doing my research, I have 45 chambers in New Hampshire. They range from 80 members to 420 members. All right, are we not gonna? There we go. So for my outreach to the chambers here in New Hampshire, I made some assumptions. And my first poor assumption was I assumed that Chamber of Commerce's in New Hampshire were similar to the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce, which is our largest chamber. And because I had worked with them in the past, I had done pollution prevention presentations at their sustainability workshop, and they had a long time relationship with local government departments such as water and sewer and code enforcement in the Greater Manchester area. And you'll see what happened after that. So I assumed that they would all be like that they would have an interest in those topics because the Manchester one was, and I just assumed that they would. So, and I also, my second assumption mistake was in Mississippi. I assumed they did traditional outreach through making phone calls and emails and attending meetings, and that is not as what happened. Jesse Thompson had a small business. He owned a record label in Mississippi, and he was a member of a Chamber of Commerce. So he started out in the Chamber of Commerce networking and making contacts and connections prior to ever making a suggestion that, hey, my program offers these services. Would you be interested? So they already had knew him as a friend, as a small business owner, and they trusted him. So the door was open. Hold on. So that I did not have, but that is how he got into the door with these Chamber of Commerce's. So in 2015 and 2016, I decided I would try to reach out to the New Hampshire Chamber of Commerce's. I thought I would just, rather than being a one-person program, I thought I'll just send one email to one chamber every month so I'm not overwhelmed. I didn't want to do a mass mailing to 20 or 30 or 80 because how would I manage all these phone calls, all these emails, all these, requests to present or go to these meetings? I knew I couldn't handle that. So I was like, I'm just going to do one a month and see what happens. Pick different groups that I think, unlike, I wouldn't need to reach out to Chamber of Commerce in Manchester because they already know me, but maybe I'll reach out to some of those other ones. So what I did is I either found them on a web page, either their executive director or their public relation person, or if all they had was general information, I would send them an email. I explained my services and that I offer free environmental assistance, that I can provide newsletter articles or come to their meetings or provide a presentation because I assumed they would have meetings and that they would need presenters and they were always looking for topics, or newsletter articles, pretty similar to my trade association contacts. They're always like, oh, hey, we need an article. Hey, we need a presentation. So I just assumed they would be like that. And here was my response to that outreach. I emailed 10 different chambers. And my mistake was number 3 was I got 0 responses from any of those chambers. I got no, oh, thank you for my email, for your email. we'll look into it. Or no, let me talk to the board, see if anybody be interested. I got, no, we're not interested. I didn't get that. I didn't get any follow-up questions. Well, what exactly kind of services do you offer? I got nothing from any one of them. And I was just like, what am I doing wrong here? And by then, Jesse and Jennifer had retired, and I could have called Mississippi, and that was one of my lessons learned. I should have called them to ask questions to figure out what worked for them, and I would have learned how Jesse had done it. And I also, because I didn't think it was necessary at the time, I didn't do follow-up calls. I should have made calls to the chambers to figure out really what their members were looking for. And then I would have learned that the Chamber of Commerce were really just at these locations were just looking to do networking. They just wanted to promote their business. I assumed they were like Manchester, where they were getting safety information. OSHA was visiting, the environmental people were visiting. Someone was coming to talk about insurance. Someone was coming to talk about taxes. They were really getting a little bit of everything. Well, these smaller chamber of commerces really that they don't want to do anything like that. They just want to network and promote their businesses. And they didn't want to know that, hey, I have an emergency generator that needs to be registered, because if they knew about it, they would have to do it. And they don't want to do that. They just wanted to just do their own thing and just stay under and just promote their business and not do anything they have to do. Okay, so that was a mistake, obviously. So in the meantime, I went ahead and joined my local chamber of commerce because I own an alpaca farm and we sell alpaca yarn, and I knit hats and other sorts of things. And I sell those at farmers markets. And the chamber of commerce, I knew some people that were in the chamber of commerce. He's like, oh, you should really join our chamber of commerce. And I was thinking, oh, hey, I have a project. I need to know better about chamber of commerces. This is a perfect opportunity for me to figure it out. So I did that and joined that. So now I have a better understanding of the dynamics of these chambers. And they really are, the newsletters are only about each other's businesses or community events or events that this business is sponsoring, whether it's a farmer's market or craft or a school event. And also that they're really into social events, and so there's a social event every quarter at one of these small businesses in those within those 15 towns, and to get to know each other, and you bring your business cards to it and then you pass them out. So I could not bring my environmental services business card, but I could bring my alpaca yarn business cards and eventually get to know some of these businesses and get into getting more information out about environmental stuff. But honestly, I needed to dedicate more time and resources to this project. I just I didn't think it was going to be necessary, but obviously it was necessary. I should have done a little bit more research, and I should have done remove those assumptions based on just my one experience. And I should have made more phone calls. So that's really what I'm here to say, is that I made those assumptions. They weren't correct. And just hoping if anybody else has any experience, anything like that, or other ideas that I could have tried, maybe in the future I'll do that. It just seems a little too big for me at this point, but you never know, something good might happen. So, so thank you. If anybody has any questions.
So, Sarah, this is Donovan. Yeah, whenever I've gone to an actual chamber meeting, I've had that experience too. It's like, oh, there's this environmental thing too, I guess. Let's talk about this money. Um, However, tomorrow, Jen and I are at a air permitting workshop that is held in conjunction with our Tennessee Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We actually have about 130 people planned to show up there with a direct focus on environmental matters and essentially a walkthrough of how to do your air permit. And we also divided up in the afternoon to non-Title V and Title V sources. So this is something that has been going on for 15, 20 years, something like that. So I think something like that helps. It puts it in the newsletter for the TCSCI because they're the main ones semi-promoting it. We're the ones doing all the work of the information side, but teaming up with them does help get the word out on that.
So, Donovan, we do have a state New Hampshire Business and Industry Association, and that's the state Chamber of Commerce. But it's mainly for no small businesses are members. It's all the big manufacturing firms, it's the big law firms, it's the big insurance company. It is not it's not the little shops. And we do a workshop with them every year. One year it's air focus, the next year it's waste focus, and that's been going on for probably 20 years as well. But it's my guys are not, my shops, my little small businesses don't attend those things. I mean, I could try. I could probably get a booth up, actually. They probably wouldn't let me present, but I could probably get a booth up. But I just don't think that's my audience at this point. I don't know why. But yes, but thank you.
Actually, sir, that's a really great distinction, and it totally does bring to mind. It's like, yeah, we're working with the state one for this, and we have a fair number, and there actually does appear to be half and half Title V and non-Title V sources there. So we are reaching some small businesses, but yeah, like you said, the actual local ones, those, yeah, it's going to be a different audience. So okay, that's a great distinction. Thank you.
The other thing I was going to say is I don't see Latrina, but Latrina now is the Mississippi Small Business Environmental Assistance person. She was very helpful when I talked to her about, and she's the one that told me about Jesse being having a record label. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that now, and how he made those connections before saying who he was. And I'm like, well, of course that worked for Jesse. And if you don't mind, Donovan probably remembers Jesse. He was quite the character and quite personal and charming. And I'm like, oh, I can see how he got into those programs and those other small businesses so easily. And Jennifer was just lovely as well. And so I was like, oh yeah, that's that. Yeah, I can see that. So maybe I just don't have the right skills at this point.
And it looks like that was about 10 years ago at this point. Have you looked back into working with them at like your chamber that you joined, or
You know, I have thought about it. It comes down to that. Now that I've done it once, do I have the time to dedicate it to make it really work? And I feel like right now, because of the ADA compliance that's going on with our webpage, I'm having to reformat a lot of publications and really am focusing on those issues because I feel that that's right. Well, that's my priority right now is to update all of that. And I'm still, like today, this morning, I was at a site visit. I just really like going on site visits. So I kind of like, okay, wait. So that's the problem. I'm doing what I like rather than doing what maybe I should do. So yes, Gina, I probably should do that. I just have to get it in my side that, oh yeah, this will be fun. And it would be fun. It would be fun to go up to those chambers. So I just have to, yes, I just need to make it a priority, which is true for any project. Once you make it a priority, you can have some success, but I need to make it a priority, and that's what it's going to take me to do. So yes, thank you.
Do you think you would find success with chambers, or like would maybe working with like trade associations be?
So there's, we're a small state. I like to say when I moved to New Hampshire, it has a population of Charlotte, and so the county of North Carolina, Charlotte, that there's more people living in Charlotte than there is in the whole state of New Hampshire. So it's pretty rural. It's a little different to try to communicate with that ruralness of it, which is one of the reasons why I like New Hampshire so much. It's very rural. There are, honestly, so there's very few. What my point is there's very few trade associations. And so we have regional ones, we have New England ones, but they really focus on Massachusetts and Connecticut for obvious reasons. There are just so many of them. And the same thing like the dry cleaners. I have never done a dry cleaner project because COVID really took out a lot of our dry cleaners. Printers, like too, same thing. Everything's going digital for printers. So it's not the same. Those trade associations are really not what they used to be. So I really think chambers, we're going to have to figure that out. I just haven't quite figured that part out yet. So I don't know, maybe we could have a work group to try to discuss those changes.
Very different demographic.
Different demographics, yes, definitely.
Well, does anybody else have any thoughts or comments or ideas?
All right, well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so I'm up next. So let me share my screen here. All right. Can someone confirm that they can see the PowerPoint here?
I can see it.
Awesome. Thank you. So I would like to talk today about our engagement events. And so every year we do have, excuse me, a couple of conferences that we attend yearly. Of course, when I have to talk, my throat's all clammed up. So we go to the Tennessee Environmental Network Show of the South, which is focused on mostly like environmental consultants and companies, really. And then the next one that we go to is our Tennessee Sustainability Conference. And that has more of a focus on like reuse and recycling, kind of more like waste focus. And as Donovan mentioned earlier, we also team up with our Division of Air Pollution Control to present at workshops about twice a year. And one is at that sustainability conference. And that one, that conference is more, or sorry, the workshops are more focused toward environmental consultants or EHS staff and managers or people who are working with the air permitting. And then another engagement event that we try to attend is our regulatory agencies, our regulatory divisions within the department have statewide staff meetings where the whole division gets together to discuss division-wide accomplishments, goals, and challenges. And I found those being very helpful to attend because you're making personal connections within the regulatory divisions too. And so I just realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm Jenna McWhorter. I with the state of Tennessee, obviously, and I'm helping with the education and outreach for our program. So the main idea for these engagement events was that you're getting a large audience to hear about your program, and hopefully that kind of spreads everything by word of mouth. And I think that's really important. So this year we attended 2 conferences that we hadn't been to in a while or were completely new. So we went to, Donovan attended and Crystal attended the Tennessee OSHA, the Health and Safety Conference. So that's more focus on safety, but there was also environmental health and safety staff. So we were finding it was helpful to interact with those guys as well. But the big one that I wanted to talk about today is PICTN, which is essentially an agricultural conference that's focused on agribusinesses located in Tennessee. And so we joined because we get a lot of agribusiness inquiries, and most of those are like sawmills or lumber companies needing help with air permitting, and also small businesses that need information about septic systems so they can do business at their property. So we wanted to go to this PICTN conference to promote the program, so small agribusinesses could be proactive about environmental permitting issues instead of reactive. And some challenges at our booth or challenges just in general at this conference, some were in and out of our control. Some of the challenges at this conference was the booth location was in a loud and kind of echoey environment. which made it difficult to have conversations. And then we also were receiving some negative comments by passersby who basically just saw that our tablecloth had Department of Environment and Conservation and immediately assumed that we're the regulatory arm of the department. So they didn't even really want to engage in conversation. They just kind of wanted to talk at you about whatever issue they were having, which is, it's good to listen to hear what people have. But that was challenging. And then within our control at the conference, maybe we could have been a little bit more organized. We didn't have like a background signage. So I felt like people were kind of passing us by without really knowing who we were. And I think because we went with our office, because our program sits within our Office of Sustainable Practices, I felt like there were too many people at our booth, and maybe that we were sitting down instead of standing up to engage with people. And then we have giveaway items, which is really great, but people were just kind of picking them up without engaging with us. And so to address those challenges, I want to make our booth environment kind of more welcoming, make sure we have that background signage. I also felt like at the last conference we attended, one of the booths I really liked was, instead of having the booth being kind of like horizontal to whoever you're talking with, that they were kind of had it off to the side, so that you could almost like enter the booth area to interact with people. So I thought that was a good idea to try out. And big thing, just being able to stand to be at other people's eye level, I think is really important, because it does feel kind of awkward to be looking up at someone who's talking to you. And I feel like they kind of feel awkward looking down too. So that was just another note. And then we also have, we didn't have at this conference, but we've started to implement, is actually have a game for people to engage with staff. So like right now we have Plinko, for example. It's like where you drop in a little chip and it like falls down, and you can kind of, either have them like answer a question about some environmental topic or something similar. But that is a way for you to like kind of start the conversation, so maybe people don't feel as awkward. And then also I think like the spinning wheel where they can like win a prize definitely is more engaging. So because we didn't have any of those items at this particular conference, we stuffed the giveaway bags that we had there with flyers that were specifically created for the agribusiness community about what our program is and what it offers, so that at least if they grabbed and went, they were still exposed to the information, even if it's them taking it out of the bag and recycling it. It's like they've at least had some interaction with it. And really our most important outcome from this was that we were able to make better connections with our Department of Agriculture. So through that conference, although maybe we didn't have like as much traction or interaction with like smaller agribusinesses, we did end up having a meeting after that conference with our Department of Agriculture, so we could discuss how our office and their office could interact better. And so I thought that was really valuable to be able to interact with a whole other department about how we could be helping small businesses, and also interacting with our other Office of Sustainable Practices programming. And my biggest feeling after I was making this PowerPoint was that you can only teach people who want to be taught. So focus your energy at those conferences on positive interactions, and take notes of negative interactions and see if there's a way that you could maybe address those types of comments in the future. And with that, I wanted to ask if y'all had any suggestions for engagement at a large event, events that your program focuses on attending, or audiences that you guys are targeting for engagement.
I don't know if you guys are on any planning committees for any of the events that you attend, but I was on the planning committee for a stormwater conference that was held at UNI just a couple of months ago. And one of the things they did was they had like a vendor passport where they gave the people who registered like this little card to visit the different booths and get checked off so they could be entered to win prizes. So I thought that was actually really helpful. And I think we had a lot of traffic by our booth of people that were using those. So I guess if that's kind of more from a planning perspective, but
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. Anybody have other thoughts? Okie dokie. I know, Michael, I don't know if you could, touch on it, that you were just finished up your trade association visits, or you're still in the process.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing all the time. But when you're at these meetings, instead of spending a majority of your time behind the booth, don't sit down unless you need to just rest your feet, but also get on the other side of the table. They look at that as you're reaching out and not putting a barrier between you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're obviously representing a regulatory agency, um, you don't want to come across that way if you're looking to offer assistance. So it's just it's body language. It's a physical, demonstration that you're on the other side of the table, engaging with people. If you have two people, you can have one part behind the table, one out talking, greeting with people, asking how they're doing. If you can strike up conversations. Maybe they get to talking with you. You exchange information. They grab brochures because you've engaged with them. It's just more of an aggressive mode, I guess.
Absolutely. Do you have particular trade association that you go to that you found more engaging than others?
Well, I do know that if you, like Sarah just talked about the chambers, but the Department of Commerce also has other things that goes on as well as Department of Labor and Industry. So yeah, we did do Safety Fest, which is obviously OSHA and safety, and it has to do with labor and industry. But if you get into like an economic development association, if you get into collision repair association, brewers association, um, let's see, what's the other one? Petroleum marketers and convenience store association. So convenience stores have their own association. I would just do a search for associations, kind of cherry pick them, which ones
Yeah.
sound interesting, plugging into the ones. You may have to actually attend some of these associations just to get out there, and just kind of start it out, try them out, see if it's worth your time next time. But you have to plug, and you just can't. Yeah, it takes action. When you look at these associations, you have to ask yourself, what value does your program bring to them? Because that's something that you're going to have to engage them with, is like, why are you there? And if you're carrying the banner of that agency that is regulatory, you do have to overcome that. So having somebody on the other side of the barrier or of that tablecloth does kind of offset the kryptonite that you might have behind you. So
For sure. Awesome. Thank you, Michael.
yeah.
Yeah, this is Sarah, and I agree with you, Michael. That's one of those things. We have this economic development, Department of Economic Development, and there's 2 or 3 people that specifically do outreach to small businesses as well as rural communities. And those rural, right, it's called Radically Rural, and they do fantastic workshops and conferences. I see what Steve posts all the time. I'm like, I really need to get involved with that group. That just sounds like a really great group to sell my services, basically. And I just need the time to do that. And that's it is, Michael. It's finding the time to do it right is a big deal, and that's where we're all at, I think.
And these associations also, most of it's a once a year thing. So if you can align yourself with planning an association event, um, obviously I have more travel involved than probably most of you, but they do rotate around the state, different sites. They don't like to keep these associations want to make their events fresh as well. And plugging in
Yeah.
with them, they actually will eventually say, "Would you like to present next time?" And it's kind of nice because they actually see the value of your presence there. You're supporting them. It shows support. Like, hey, I'm here to assist. I'm here to support. But being in those associations is probably a better network than, yes, I've done the chambers and I've done the local chambers, and I don't even know the tally, but it does take time. They do like the face to face, but to get more bang for your buck, the associations actually has more scope, I guess.
Hmm.
And so if you plug into the associations and maybe even offer to say, hey, in your next e-blaster newsletter, could you maybe have a 1 or 2 line mentioning the program, your name, and here's my website or whatever, and keep your website fresh, easy to use, but engage with these folks at these associations. They remember you, exchange business cards, hand out a SB brochure. I run around with 2 programs, so it's kind of, for me, I do double duty when I go to these associations sometimes, like the Montana Economic Development Association or Safety Fest, which is Department of Labor of Industry. So plugging in with the other agencies as well. Sometimes they actually have these events, and if it's another state agency, they don't even charge you for tabling. So it's, you can go to their associations as well and show like you're having a unified front for these other associations at our state. So like if you're, let's see here, well, with DLI, so Department of Labor Industry, but you also have the META conference, the Montana Economic Development Association. Yeah, you kind of have to keep these acronyms all tied up and plan yourself very, very well, because sometimes they
Yeah.
overlap as well. But when you do have these kind of events, they do lead to other events. And then when you talk to other vendors, you can also ask, what's working, what's not. Because just engaging in those conversations with other fellow vendors is also how it's expanded for me. But yeah, you're correct. The associations are probably your best plug, and free advertising basically, but you're just tabling at the event. Sometimes you don't even have to table. So like if there's no tabling option, you just go to the association. Yeah, we don't have that option. Well, can I just put up a little like a card stack or whatever like that, or a brochure stack, um, and then mingle with the crowd, carry around a bunch of business cards, engage with them. Not everybody you talk to is going to pan out, but they do talk to other people, and it's a network. So those associations are pretty tight.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super helpful. I don't think I've gone to any like more trade association meetings yet, so it seems like that'd be a really good outlet for us to investigate. All right. Anybody else have anything they wanted to add? Awesome.
I
Okay,
will
well,
add I will
oh yeah,
add one
go
more
ahead.
thing. So
Go
sometimes
ahead.
these associations do require a weekend. So if you're willing to cough up a
Yeah.
weekend and flex your work week, that's fine. If you can't, you just need to plan it. But like I said, there's been a few associations that only hold weekends because these people work during the weekdays, and then they say we're going to throw this conference together. It's a one day on a Saturday or something like that. You might be throwing a Saturday, but
Yeah.
just kind of keep yourself flexible if you're going to be working with the association schedules. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm thinking maybe you could share with us like in a next meeting or something or webinar about maybe how you like plan out your year with the different associations. That might be an interesting topic to hear. Okay.
And you would have to put it in your work plan.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
I think that gives your higher ups more insight. Like this is part of my plan. I'm going to plan
Yeah.
to attend association. So if you're doing
Yeah.
your yearly work plan, just make sure you mention, hey, we're checking out this association. and that'll help buy-in from your support, and then you attend the associations, and then it becomes a routine.
Gotcha. Awesome. Very good.